Imagine reaching into an old jar of pennies that has been collecting dust for decades. Most people would never give those coins a second glance. They look dirty, scratched, worn smooth by countless hands, and almost worthless. But what if I told you that one of those ordinary-looking pennies could be hiding a story that stretches back more than 70 years? A story of post-war America, booming industries, bustling factories, and a tiny copper coin that traveled through thousands of pockets before ending up forgotten in a drawer. Welcome to the channel where every coin has a story, and sometimes that story is worth far more than its face value. Today we're continuing our countdown of incredible Lincoln wheat pennies that may appear worn out but can still command surprising prices. Our first featured coin is the fascinating 1951 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that millions of people have seen but very few truly understand. At first glance, it may look like nothing more than another old penny. It carries Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait on the front and the iconic wheat ears on the reverse. To the average person, it's simply 1 cent. But collectors know that behind this humble appearance lies a rich history, exciting varieties, and in some cases, values that can climb into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So settle in, because over the next several minutes we're going to uncover everything that makes the 1951 wheat penny one of the most interesting coins to search for. And by the end of this story, you may find yourself checking every old penny you own. The year was 1951. America was entering a new chapter after World War II. Families were building homes, businesses were expanding, and automobiles filled the roads like never before. Television was becoming a centerpiece in American households, and the nation was experiencing tremendous economic growth. Every day, millions of pennies were needed to keep commerce moving. Whether someone was buying a newspaper, paying for a loaf of bread, or dropping a coin into a vending machine, pennies were an essential part of daily life. To meet this enormous demand, the United States Mint worked around the clock, producing billions of coins across its facilities. One of the busiest locations was the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark found beneath the date on Lincoln cents. It was here that the famous 1951 wheat penny was born. When workers at the Denver Mint struck these pennies, no one imagined they would become collector's items decades later. They were produced in massive numbers, intended to circulate immediately and eventually wear out from everyday use. Fresh from the mint, each coin displayed a bright reddish copper color that shimmered in the light. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln stood sharply detailed, while the reverse proudly displayed two elegant wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. These beautiful details represented American craftsmanship at its finest. Yet almost all of these coins would soon lose their brilliance as they entered circulation. Think about the journey of just one 1951 wheat penny. It may have been handed to a grocery store cashier, dropped into a child's piggy bank, used to buy candy at a neighborhood store, or carried in the pocket of a factory worker. Every scratch tells a story. Every worn edge represents another chapter in its life. Over the decades, these pennies traveled across cities and states, passing through thousands of hands before many were forgotten forever. Some ended up buried in jars, hidden in attics, tucked away in old wallets, or sealed inside forgotten collections. Others continued circulating for years until they became so worn that most people never noticed them again. This is where the excitement truly begins. While billions of pennies were produced, collectors don't simply judge a coin by its age. They examine its condition, color, strike quality, mint mark, and possible minting errors. Even a coin that appears heavily worn can become incredibly valuable if it possesses a rare variety or unusual mistake created during production. That's why experienced collectors never dismiss an old wheat penny based solely on appearance. Some of the greatest discoveries in coin collecting have come from coins that looked ordinary at first glance. One of the first things collectors examine on a 1951 wheat penny is the mint mark itself. The tiny D, Beneath the date confirms the coin was struck in Denver. Although Denver produced an enormous number of these pennies, certain examples exhibit exceptional strike quality. During the minting process, each blank copper planchet was struck between two steel dies under tremendous pressure. If the pressure was perfect and the dies were fresh, every detail would appear crisp and bold. If the dies had begun wearing out, some details would appear softer. Collectors often pay premiums for coins with especially strong strikes, where Lincoln's hair, beard, and wheat ears remain remarkably sharp. Another important factor is the original copper color. Freshly minted copper coins possess a brilliant red appearance. As decades pass, exposure to air gradually transforms that bright red into brown through oxidation. Professional grading services classify copper cents into three color categories: red, red-brown, and brown. Red examples are the rarest because they have somehow avoided decades of environmental damage. A fully red 1951 Wheat penny preserved in outstanding condition can command prices dramatically higher than an ordinary brown example, even though both coins began life exactly the same way. Now let's talk about wear. Many people believe a worn coin automatically has little value. While that may be true for common modern coins, older wheat pennies are different. A heavily circulated 1951 penny still holds historical significance, and collectors often seek examples to complete daytime mint collections. Even if a coin has lost much of its original detail, it can still be worth several times its face value simply because it belongs to the beloved Lincoln Wheat series that ended in 1958. But what truly captures the imagination of collectors are mint errors. During the minting process, countless things could occasionally go wrong. Dies could crack, planchets could be imperfect, coins might be struck off-center, doubled, or exhibit unusual die varieties. These mistakes escaped into circulation unnoticed, making them exciting treasures today. A 1951 Wheat penny with a significant mint error can become dramatically more valuable than a normal example. That's why experienced collectors inspect every old penny under magnification, instead of assuming it's ordinary. One particularly fascinating possibility involves die cracks and die chips. As steel dies repeatedly struck thousands upon thousands of planchets, microscopic fractures sometimes developed. Eventually, these cracks transferred onto the coins as raised lines or unusual shapes. While many die cracks are minor, larger examples create unique appearances that collectors enjoy studying. Every cracked die tells the story of a hardworking mint die nearing the end of its useful life before finally being replaced. Collectors also pay close attention to doubled features. Although dramatic doubled dies are rare for the 1951 series, any noticeable doubling on letters, numbers, or Lincoln's portrait deserves careful examination. Genuine doubling created during the die manufacturing process differs greatly from simple machine doubling. Understanding these differences takes experience, but discovering a true variety can transform an ordinary-looking penny into an exciting collector's prize. Another factor influencing value is preservation. Coins stored in dry, stable environments often survive in surprisingly attractive condition. Others exposed to moisture, chemicals, or harsh cleaning lose much of their collector appeal. This leads to one of the most important lessons for anyone searching old pennies: never clean your coins. It may seem logical to polish away dirt or discoloration, but cleaning almost always reduces collector value. Professional numismatists prefer original surfaces because they preserve the coin's authentic history. Even dark tunning or natural wear is usually more desirable than an aggressively cleaned surface. Imagine opening an old family coin box inherited from a grandparent. Among the loose change sits a small brown 1951 Wheat penny. At first it seems insignificant, but closer inspection reveals unusually sharp details, beautiful original luster hiding beneath decades of storage, and perhaps an interesting mint error. Stories like this happen more often than many people realize. Valuable discoveries continue to emerge from inherited collections, estate sales, flea markets, and forgotten piggy banks every year. Professional grading services play a major role in determining a coin's market value. Experts carefully evaluate surface quality, strike, luster, color, and preservation before assigning a numerical grade. Even a 1-point difference in grade can dramatically affect price, especially for high-quality copper coins. That's why collectors often submit exceptional examples for certification, ensuring authenticity and establishing market confidence. Although millions of 1951 wheat pennies survive today, only a tiny fraction remain in exceptional mint-state condition, with brilliant original red color. These elite specimens compete fiercely whenever they appear at major auctions. While an average circulated example might sell for only a modest premium over face value, superb certified examples have achieved prices reaching hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their grade, rarity, and eye appeal. Those remarkable auction results remind collectors that condition truly matters. Perhaps the greatest lesson from the 1951 wheat penny is that appearances can be deceiving. A coin covered with decades of honest wear may still represent an important piece of American history. It survived countless transactions, witnessed changing generations, and traveled farther than most people will ever know. Every nick and scratch serves as evidence of a life spent in circulation, connecting us directly with the everyday experiences of people who lived more than 70 years ago. So before you overlook that old penny resting at the bottom of a drawer, take a closer look. Search for the date 1951. Check beneath the date for the small D mint mark. Examine the lettering, the wheat stalks, Lincoln's portrait, and the overall condition. Look carefully for unusual errors, strong strikes, or original red color. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin could become the highlight of your collection. The thrill of the hunt is what keeps millions of collectors searching through pocket chain every single day. The 1951 Lincoln wheat penny reminds us that true treasure isn't always shiny or obvious. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a worn little coin that everyone else ignored. Whether it's worth a few cents, a few dollars, or an astonishing auction price, every surviving example carries a remarkable story of American history, craftsmanship, and everyday life. And who knows, the next incredible discovery might already be waiting inside your coin jar. So keep searching, stay curious, and remember. The second coin is 1951 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, it looks like just another old copper cent that has spent decades passing from one hand to another. Its surface may be worn, the details may be soft, and its once bright copper color may have turned a deep brown after years of circulation. Most people would never think twice before tossing it into a jar of loose change. But experienced collectors know that appearances can be deceiving. Hidden behind this ordinary-looking coin is a fascinating history, surprising collector demand, and the possibility of values that can reach hundreds or even thousands of dollars for the finest examples. So before you dismiss that old penny sitting in your collection, stay with me, because the 1951 wheat penny might be one of the most overlooked treasures in American coin collecting. The story begins in 1951 at the historic San Francisco Mint, one of the most famous mint facilities in the United States. By this time, America was enjoying a period of rapid growth following World War II. Factories were busy, businesses were thriving, and millions of coins were needed every single day to keep the nation's economy moving. The San Francisco Mint, identified by the small S mint mark beneath the date, was producing Lincoln wheat pennies to meet this growing demand. Every coin that rolled off the presses was intended for everyday use, not for collectors. Workers at the mint had no idea that decades later people would carefully examine these same pennies under magnifying glasses, searching for tiny details that could make them valuable. Freshly struck, the 1951 wheat penny was a beautiful coin. The front featured Abraham Lincoln's famous portrait, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. On the reverse were two graceful wheat ears surrounding the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, a design that had become one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. The bright copper-red surface sparkled in the light, giving each new penny an appearance that was almost jewel-like. Unfortunately, very few of these coins kept that original beauty. Most entered circulation immediately, where they spent years buying newspapers, candy, groceries, bus fares, and countless everyday items before eventually becoming worn from constant use. Imagine the journey of just one 1951 Wheat Penny. It might have been handed to a cashier in San Francisco, carried across the country in someone's pocket, dropped into a child's piggy bank, or forgotten inside an old dresser drawer for decades. Every scratch, every tiny mark, and every smooth edge tells part of its story. Unlike modern coins that often disappear into digital banking systems, these pennies lived active lives, changing hands thousands of times before finding their way into collections or forgotten jars. That incredible history is one of the reasons collectors love wheat pennies so much. They are not just coins, but silent witnesses to American history. One of the first things collectors examine is the small S mint mark beneath the date. This tiny letter confirms the coin was struck at the San Francisco Mint. Although millions of 1951 pennies were produced, not all were created equally. Some coins were struck with exceptional detail, while others show weaker impressions because the minting dyes had begun to wear. Collectors pay close attention to Lincoln's hair, beard, and coat, as well as the sharpness of the wheat ears on the reverse. Coins with crisp, well-defined details are usually more desirable than weakly struck examples. Color also plays a major role in determining value. Copper naturally changes over time as it reacts with oxygen in the air. A freshly minted penny has a brilliant red appearance, but after decades it gradually turns reddish-brown and eventually dark brown. Professional grading companies classify copper coins into three color categories: red, red-brown, and brown. Fully red examples are the rarest because they have somehow survived decades without significant oxidation. A 1951 Wheat Penny with original mint-tread surfaces in high-grade condition can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars because collectors compete fiercely for these beautifully preserved coins. Condition is another important factor. Most surviving 1951 Wheat pennies show moderate to heavy wear because they circulated extensively. Coins that escape circulation shortly after being minted are far less common. These mint-state examples still display original luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks. Collectors often search for these exceptional coins because they represent the way the penny looked when it first left the mint more than 70 years ago. Then comes one of the most exciting parts of coin collecting: mint errors and varieties. During the minting process, machines occasionally made mistakes. Dies could crack, planchets could be imperfect, or coins could be struck off-center. Some coins display die cracks, die chips, repunched mint marks, or unusual doubling that make them especially desirable. While dramatic errors are uncommon, even small varieties can attract significant interest from collectors. This is why experienced coin hunters inspect every wheat penny carefully, instead of assuming it has no value. Another interesting feature of the 1951 Wheat Penny is that many examples display attractive natural toning. Over decades of storage, copper develops shades of chocolate brown, mahogany, golden bronze, and even hints of blue or purple under the right conditions. Collectors appreciate this natural aging process because it creates a unique appearance that cannot be duplicated artificially. However, coins that have been cleaned or polished often lose much of their collector appeal. Cleaning removes the original surface and can significantly reduce value, even if the coin appears shinier afterward. That's why experts always recommend leaving old coins exactly as they are found. Auction records have shown that ordinary circulated 1951 Wheat pennies usually sell for modest premiums over face value, making them affordable for beginning collectors. But the story changes dramatically for high-grade certified examples with original red color. The finest known specimens have sold for astonishing amounts because so few survived in pristine condition. These exceptional coins remind collectors that rarity is not determined solely by mintage numbers, but also by how many examples remain in outstanding condition today. One of the greatest thrills in coin collecting is the possibility of making an unexpected discovery. Every year, collectors search through inherited coin collections, estate sales, flea markets, antique shops, and forgotten jars of loose change. Occasionally, someone finds a beautiful 1951 wheat penny that had gone unnoticed for decades. These discoveries prove that valuable coins are still waiting to be found by people willing to look closely and learn what makes them special. The 1951 wheat penny is more than just an old 1-cent coin. It is a small piece of American history that connects us to a time when every purchase was made with cash, when pennies played an important role in everyday life, and when the San Francisco Mint was helping supply a growing nation with the coins it needed. Every surviving example carries decades of history in its worn surfaces and faded copper color, reminding us that even the smallest coin can tell an extraordinary story. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny, don't ignore it because it looks worn or ordinary. Turn it over, check the date, and look for the tiny S mint mark beneath 1951. Examine the color, the condition, and the details carefully. You may not uncover a fortune every time, but every search brings the excitement of possibility. Somewhere out there, a forgotten 1951 Lincoln wheat penny is still waiting to surprise its next owner, proving once again that hidden treasures often come in the smallest packages. Now it's time for our third incredible coin, and this one is a favorite among Lincoln wheat penny collectors, the 1956 Lincoln wheat penny from the United States of America. At first glance, this coin doesn't seem extraordinary. It looks like an ordinary old penny with decades of circulation, faded copper color, and worn details that many people would overlook without a second thought. Millions of these coins were spent on everyday purchases, passed from one person to another, and eventually forgotten in drawers, piggy banks, and old coin jars. Yet despite its common appearance, the 1956 wheat penny has become one of the most collected coins in the Lincoln Wheat series. While many examples are worth only a small premium over face value, certain high-grade specimens and rare varieties have sold for impressive amounts, proving once again that a coin's true value isn't always obvious at first glance. If you've ever found an old 1956 penny in your change, you may have held a piece of American history without even realizing it. The year 1956 represented an exciting period in American history. The United States was experiencing rapid economic growth. New highways were connecting cities across the country. Television had become a central part of family life, and businesses were expanding faster than ever before. Every day, millions of Americans relied on pennies for small purchases, making the 1-cent coin one of the hardest working pieces of money in circulation. To meet this enormous demand, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln wheat pennies at its Philadelphia and Denver facilities. Every coin was carefully struck from a bronze alloy composed primarily of copper, giving it the rich reddish color that collectors still admire today. At the time, no one imagined that decades later these everyday pennies would become prized collectibles searched for by enthusiasts around the world. The design of the 1956 wheat penny had already become one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. The obverse proudly displayed the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of his birth. Above his head appeared the national motto, "In God We Trust," while the word liberty stood beside his profile, and the date 1956 appeared below. On the reverse, Two elegant wheat stalks frame the inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America, with the Latin motto E-Pluribus Unum above them. This classic wheat ear design symbolized America's agricultural heritage and remained in use until 1958 before being replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Imagine the journey of one ordinary 1956 wheat penny. Fresh from the mint, its brilliant red copper surface sparkled under the lights as it was packed into large canvas bags and shipped to banks across the nation. Within days it entered circulation, buying newspapers, candy bars, movie tickets, school lunches, and countless other everyday items. It passed through thousands of hands over the years, collecting tiny scratches and signs of wear that told the story of its long life. Some coins traveled across the entire country, while others remained in the same hometown for decades. Eventually, many were tucked away inside old jars, hidden in dresser drawers, or forgotten in family collections where they remained untouched for years. One of the most important factors determining the value of a 1956 wheat penny is its condition. Most surviving examples circulated extensively and show worn details, darker brown surfaces, and evidence of everyday use. These circulated coins are popular with beginning collectors because they are affordable and easy to find. However, coins that escape circulation entirely are much more desirable. Mint state examples still display sharp details, original mint luster, and very few contact marks. Collectors are willing to pay significant premiums for these beautifully preserved coins because they reveal exactly how the penny looked when it first left the mint nearly 70 years ago. Another key factor is color. Copper naturally changes over time as it reacts with oxygen in the environment. Freshly minted coins begin with a bright red appearance, but gradually develop reddish-brown and eventually brown surfaces through oxidation. Professional grading companies classify copper coins into 3 categories: red, red-brown, and brown. Fully red examples are especially desirable because they have retained their original mint color despite the passage of time. A certified mint state 1956 wheat penny with full red color can command surprisingly high prices at auction, especially in the highest grades, where only a small number of examples are known to exist. Collectors also pay close attention to strike quality. During the minting process, each blank planchet was struck between hardened steel dies under tremendous pressure. Coins struck from fresh dies usually display crisp details on Lincoln's portrait and the wheat ears, while coins struck from worn dies may appear softer. Strongly struck examples with exceptional detail are often more valuable because they showcase the finest quality of the mint's craftsmanship. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of the 1956 wheat penny involves mint errors and varieties. Although most coins were produced correctly, a small number left the mint with fascinating mistakes. Some display die cracks, where tiny fractures in the minting die created raised lines on the finished coin. Others may have off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or doubling caused during the manufacturing process. These unusual characteristics transform ordinary pennies into highly collectible treasures. Experienced collectors examine every 1956 wheat penny under magnification, because even a small error can significantly increase its value. One important lesson every collector should remember is never to clean an old coin. Many people mistakenly believe polishing a penny will increase its value, but the opposite is usually true. Cleaning removes the original surface, creates fine scratches, and destroys the natural appearance that collectors appreciate. Even a dark brown coin with decades of honest wear is generally worth more than the same coin after it has been polished. Professional numismatists always recommend preserving coins exactly as they are found. Auction results over the years have demonstrated the remarkable difference condition can make. While an ordinary circulated 1956 wheat penny might sell for only a modest amount, superb certified mint state examples with full red color have realized hundreds and, in exceptional cases, even thousands of dollars. These impressive sales continue to inspire collectors to search through old coin collections, estate sales, flea markets, and rolls of pennies in hopes of discovering an overlooked treasure. Perhaps the greatest appeal of the 1956 wheat penny lies in its accessibility. Unlike some rare coins that are almost impossible to find, this date still appears in old collections and occasionally turns up in forgotten jars of loose change. That means anyone, regardless of experience, has the opportunity to discover one. Every search brings the excitement of possibility, because you never know when an ordinary-looking penny could turn out to be an exceptional survivor with remarkable value. The 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny is much more than a simple 1-cent coin. It represents a remarkable period in American history, a time of optimism, growth, and everyday commerce. Every surviving example carries the marks of its journey through countless hands and countless moments in history. Whether it's worth a few cents or several $1,000s depends on factors like condition, color, strike, and rarity, but every coin tells a unique story that makes it special. So before you overlook another old penny, take a closer look at the date. If you find a 1956 wheat penny, examine it carefully. You could be holding a forgotten piece of American history, and perhaps even a valuable hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. Our fourth featured coin is another remarkable piece of American history, the 1957 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny from the United States of America. At first glance, this coin may seem like nothing more than an old copper penny that has spent years in circulation. Its once brilliant surface may now be dark brown. The edges may show signs of wear, and Abraham Lincoln's portrait may have softened after decades of passing through countless hands. To most people, it looks like an ordinary 1-cent coin with little or no value. However, experienced collectors know that the 1957 D wheat penny can be far more exciting than it appears. While millions were produced at the Denver Mint, certain examples in exceptional condition, along with rare mint errors and well-preserved red specimens, have become highly desirable and have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That is why coin enthusiasts never ignore an old wheat penny, no matter how worn it looks. The story of the 1957 D wheat penny begins during one of the most prosperous periods in American history. The United States was enjoying strong economic growth. New neighborhoods were appearing across the country, and families were buying homes, automobiles, televisions, and modern appliances at record levels. Every day, billions of coins were needed to support this busy economy. The Denver Mint worked tirelessly to produce enough pennies for circulation, striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies that would soon travel across the nation. Each coin carried the small D mint mark beneath the date, identifying it as a product of the Denver Mint. At the time, no one imagined that these everyday coins would one day become treasured collectibles studied carefully by numismatists around the world. Fresh from the mint, the 1957 D wheat penny displayed a stunning reddish copper shine that reflected the craftsmanship of the United States Mint. The obverse featured Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, surrounded by the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1957. On the reverse, two graceful wheat ears framed the words 1 cent and United States of America, with EPLURIBUSUNUM above. This timeless wheat ear design had represented American coinage since 1909 and would remain in production for only one more year before being replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. That makes every 1957 D wheat penny part of the final chapter of the beloved wheat cent series. Imagine the journey of one of these pennies after leaving the Denver Mint. It might have been delivered to a local bank, spent on a loaf of bread, dropped into a child's piggy bank, used in a vending machine, or carried in a soldier's pocket while traveling across the country. Over the years, it passed through thousands of hands, each transaction leaving tiny marks that became part of its history. Some coins remained in circulation for decades before being forgotten inside jars, old purses, family collections, or dresser drawers. Those forgotten pennies continue to surface today, creating exciting discoveries for collectors who know what to look for. One of the first details collectors examine is the small D mint mark beneath the date. This tiny letter confirms the coin was struck in Denver. While the overall mintage was very high, collectors still search for examples with exceptional strike quality. Coins struck using fresh dies display sharp details in Lincoln's hair, beard, and coat, while the wheat ears on the reverse appear crisp and fully defined. These well-struck examples are more desirable because they showcase the finest quality of the minting process. Color is another major factor that determines value. When newly minted, every 1957 D wheat penny had a bright red copper surface. Over time, exposure to air caused the copper to oxidize, changing the color first to reddish-brown and eventually to dark brown. Professional grading services classify these coins as red, red-brown, or brown. Fully red examples are especially prized because they have preserved their original mint appearance for nearly 70 years. A mint-state red 1957 D wheat penny can command impressive prices at auction because so few have survived in flawless condition. Condition also plays an enormous role in determining value. Most surviving 1957 D wheat pennies spent years in circulation, resulting in worn details and numerous contact marks. While these circulated coins remain popular with collectors completing Lincoln wheat penny albums, the real excitement surrounds mint-state examples that escape circulation entirely. These coins still display brilliant luster, sharp details, and minimal signs of handling. Professional grading services carefully evaluate each specimen, and even a single grade difference can significantly affect its market value. One of the most fascinating aspects of collecting the 1957 D wheat penny is the possibility of finding mint errors. Although most coins were struck correctly, occasional mistakes occurred during production. Some examples feature die cracks, die chips, off-center strikes, or other unusual characteristics that make them highly collectible. Every error tells a unique story about what happened inside the mint during the striking process. Collectors often inspect each coin with magnification, because even a subtle variety can transform an ordinary penny into a valuable collector's item. Another important lesson for every collector is to resist the temptation to clean old coins. Many people believe that polishing a dull penny will increase its value, but in reality, cleaning usually causes permanent damage. It removes the coin's original surface and leaves tiny scratches that professional graders can easily detect. Collectors almost always prefer coins with natural toning and untouched surfaces, even if they appear dark or worn. Preserving a coin exactly as it was found is the best way to protect its historical and collector value. Auction records have shown just how dramatically condition can influence price. Ordinary circulated 1957 D wheat pennies often sell for only a small premium over face value, making them affordable additions to any collection. However, the finest certified mint state red examples have realized hundreds, and in exceptional grades, even thousands of dollars at major auctions. These impressive results continue to inspire collectors to search through inherited collections, estate sales, bank rolls, flea markets, and old jars filled with forgotten pennies. The 1957 D wheat penny also carries special historical importance because it belongs to the final years of the wheat cent series. After nearly 50 years of production, the iconic wheatear reverse was approaching the end of its run. Just 1 year later, in 1958, the last wheat pennies would be struck before the design changed forever. Because of this, many collectors enjoy assembling complete sets of these final year coins, making the 1957 D an essential part of every Lincoln wheat penny collection. The story of the 1957 D wheat penny reminds us that true treasures are often hidden in plain sight. A coin that most people would overlook may actually represent decades of American history, remarkable craftsmanship, and surprising collector value. Whether it's worth a few cents, a few dollars, or an impressive auction price depends on its condition, color, strike quality, and any unique mint errors it may possess. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't rush to spend it. Turn it over, check the date, look for the D mint mark, and examine it carefully. You never know, you could be holding a forgotten piece of American history and the next exciting discovery in the world of coin collecting.